All right, welcome everyone. This is Amy Bernos, the school superintendent, and I'm really excited to be here with you this evening and would like to first start off by thanking Foxborough Cable Access for once again hosting one of our virtual town meetings. Joining us this evening, we have our three elementary principals. We have Mike Stanton, the principal over at the Taylor Elementary School, Michelle McCarthy at the Borough, and Kate Campbell at the IGO. We also have our assistant superintendent, Dr. Mello, joining us, and our Ahern and district nurse leader, Ms. Jen Rosenberg. And then also joining us is going to be our school committee chair, Mr. Richard Pearson. So again, we're really excited this evening to be here to discuss our full return to in-person learning. A lot has happened since September 3rd, since our last virtual town hall meeting. We've learned a lot, we've been through a lot, but our goal has always been to return our students to full in-person learning, knowing how important our brick and mortar schools are and all the things that come with being together physically. Simply stated, that active engagement and the motivation that comes with being together in person, it is crucially important from both an academic and a social standpoint. Adapting to the challenges this school year for COVID-19 has not been easy on anyone, and we continue to be so appreciative of the strong community support from our faculty, our staff, our parents, and our community. The saying, "It takes a village," could not be more true this year. So with that, let me first begin by thanking all of you for your support with dealing with new schedules for your children, the technology ups and downs, and the extra support that you've provided all year long when it comes to academics. And I'm sure some of those sad times with students not being able to be in school full day. We do understand the enormity of these challenges. And we also know that getting our students, your children, back in school full time for the academics and social connections is so important to their young lives. This evening, our goal is to provide you with an overview of what will not change and what will change as students transition back to full time and a more normal structured learning environment, again, based on what we're able to do with protocols, as normal as we can be. As you are aware, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has mandated that all students K-5 return full in person by April the 5th. This guidance that we receive from the department, from DESE, we've received guidance throughout the entire school year in different topic areas, whether it's facilities, transportation, and then more specifically here, time on learning. This most recent guidance includes that remote and hybrid learning will no longer count toward the state's time on learning regulations. And it's importantly that we know that as we move to full in person for this year, that we know that we're at a different place than we were at the start of the school year. And that again, we've learned a lot. For instance, we've learned that our mitigation strategies have worked in schools, and schools are the safest place to be. And a lot of that goes to the credit of our families and keeping students home when they're not feeling well and doing that self-checker before school. We do expect further guidance to come from the Department of Education, and we'll adapt as necessary. In Foxborough currently, for the last 5 weeks, we've been in the yellow with a positivity rate of less than 3%. We are very thankful that we've continued to see no transmission in schools. So for example, the positive cases, whether students or staff that we've had during the school year, none of those have resulted from transmission in school. So this evening, our presentation is going to focus on in-person learning and the mitigation strategies that will still be in place. If your student is learning fully remotely, as in cohort D, they can continue to learn remotely. We do know, however, that we've had from our recent survey that there's many families who wish for their students to return to full in-person learning. So a questionnaire was sent out on Tuesday evening to all cohort D families for them to indicate what their plans are. So although this evening's focused on in-person learning, I will just make note that there are some changes for our fully remote students due to schools being back full in person. So for example, our specialists will be unable to continue with live lessons due to scheduling constraints. We are exploring opportunities for asynchronous opportunities, and Closing Circle will continue to be offered on Friday afternoon. We also know that there are going to be possible changes for scheduling when it comes to any of our students that are receiving special education or related services. but those will be communicated to those applicable families. So before I turn this over to our fabulous elementary principals, I would just like to take a moment to reiterate that safety always is our first priority and will continue to be. We also prioritize our students' social and emotional health, knowing that our students are experiencing this pandemic, COVID-19, all very differently. We're very fortunate to have had elementary students in our hybrid model be able to be in school 5 days a week, even though only for a half a day. But that has been able to bring some consistency at a time that we know that's been really difficult. At the same time, we know that there will be a transition period as we bring our two cohorts back together and create a classroom community with both cohorts together. But teachers have already begun this process, and you'll hear a little bit about that this evening. The last thing that I'll just mention is that we do have a hard stop at 6:45 due to another town virtual meeting that will be taking place. So any questions that are put within the chat, we'll answer those this evening. But if we do not get to all of those, we will be downloading the chat at the end of this evening, and you can always reach out to your child's school with any other questions that you have. So I'm going to turn it over to our principals here as they're going to be sharing with you our agenda that will include many of the protocols and some of the more logistical questions that might be on your mind.
Before they start, I just want to say that the agenda is to serve as sort of anticipatory guide for people who might have questions to see what we're going to be covering. So hopefully that will help to know those topics are coming.
Good evening, everyone. As Dr. Bertos shared that we have sent out surveys, we've surveyed families, we've surveyed our staff, but most importantly, recently we surveyed our students, your children. So across all three schools, what we asked our teachers to do is we gave the sentence starter, I wish my teacher or principal knew in relation to the full return. And we found that some trends emerged, and they sort of fell into three broad categories: what students were excited about, worried about, and questions that they had. So excited to see their friends and to make new friends. Recess, no more remote work, you know, and just to be in the school longer. They had that, some students shared that. What they were worried about it ranged from waking up on time. This was one that I felt was, you know, touching, less family time. They were worried about, obviously, that, you know, there have been some silver linings in all of this and having some more time as a family together. Some children are worried about that and having that piece of it. Other things, you know, it related to what if someone gets COVID? Will we have to shut down again? So these were some of the things that children worried about. They were also worried about what will specials look like? How about recess? And that sort of went into the questions too about cafeteria. What's that going to look like in the bus? So all of these sort of topics and questions and statements by your children, the classroom teachers are doing a wonderful job facilitating that and guiding. What the three principals, what we will be doing is we'll be holding a combination of classroom visits to each of the classrooms, but also some virtual assemblies as well. So we can address and share information with your children. They've given us a lot of different topics, and it's great because it actually helps sort of guide this evening's presentation because it mirrored a couple of things that we wanted to discuss with you. But we wanted to let you know that, you know, throughout this, your children are the focal point. Our classroom teachers are doing a fantastic job of continuing to talk to your children and, more importantly, to listen to them as we make this transition. And those voices at home, if you have anything that comes up, we just want to start off with that. Please reach out, whether it's your classroom teacher, to the building principal or the school counselor. Let us know what we can do to help. And next, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Campbell, who's going to talk about health and safety.
Thank you, Mr. Stanton. And I agree. We're just so excited to hear the conversations that are happening throughout all three buildings. And we're listening carefully to all the students, but it's exciting to hear their positive energy about coming back. As Dr. Berto said, some of the things that we are taking very seriously are the safety protocols. And it's important for our families to know that we are still going to be enforcing the wearing of a mask, the waiting and spacing, as well as washing hands often or using sanitizer. So many of the routines that we have enforced from the beginning of the school year, we are just continuing. If any protocol, and it will change somewhat as we go from 6 to 3 feet, but we'll be talking about that with the kids and practicing and what that looks like. So I feel that we've done a nice job working with the staff and really saying, all right, what could this potentially look like? Where could there be some confusion? But I feel it's been very clear for us as we go forward. We're staying the course. We know that wearing a mask, socially distanced, and washing our hands is going to be able to keep us here in person safely. All right. Mrs. McCarthy.
Sorry. Thank you. I'm Michelle McCarthy, the principal at the Borough School. I feel like I am going to reiterate a lot of what was just said. I do want to start by restating what Dr. Burdos said in the opening, that we have not had any in-school transmissions at the elementary level. And we do, that is indeed just because we are being vigilant about following these guidelines. So there's not a lot that will change for students as we go from the hybrid model to full in-person. Students will still be wearing their masks. We will have mask breaks as needed. There will be some that are scheduled, like snack and lunch. But if a child needs a mask break, we will allow that. We will have spaces in the classroom that are spaced far away, like corners for mask breaks. Also at recess, we will allow spaces for that as well. So we do know that it's a longer amount of time and kids might need those breaks. We are asking, one thing that we are asking is that because it is a longer day and recess is included, that you send an extra mask, because we find that those tend to get a little bit damp. Of course, we will still provide as needed, but it will be helpful to have that extra mask, that if the kids are finding that theirs is getting damp, that they have another one to go to. The change from inside the classroom that's allowing us to go to full in-person is that 3-foot distancing. But for snack and lunch, we still will maintain that 6-foot distancing. Hand washing and sanitizing routines will be the same when students enter the building, before and after eating, before and after recess. Restrooms, we will continue to keep a capacity limit on those to make sure that, again, that spacing is being maintained. Cleaning routines will also continue as they have. Misters at the end of the day, the custodians are going through the building throughout the day, cleaning up touch points as well as restrooms. And again, that hand sanitizer and hand washing will be done throughout the day as it has been. So again, not a lot changing. The kids are very much into the routines. I will say, besides an occasional reminder to pull their mask up over their nose, they're pros at this. So we're in a good space. I didn't know before we transitioned if Jen Rosenberg wanted to talk at all about contact tracing.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much. I just, first of all, want to start off by, echoing Dr. Berdos's comments earlier about the parents and commending them for the wonderful job they're doing with their children, for their support and patience with our nurses. I know often it's not easy to get that phone call that your child was deemed a close contact, or the questions that we ask, we try to follow up on any kid that's, out of school if they're sick. We appreciate your support, your patience, and you are all the reason that we're still here in school. I think it's important moving forward, especially going to that 3 to 6 foot distance, that you continue to be vigilant about the morning checking symptom checker, assessing your child before they leave for school. That's going to, I just had a meeting with Dr. Giuliano, our town physician, and I asked him just his opinion. I had said we are having this meeting this evening, and 2 key points that he said that would be, 2 mitigation strategies that are going to be even more important when we go to full in would be that morning symptom checker by the parents before they send their kids to school, and also the mask wearing, making sure those masks are worn properly and they fit correctly. As far as the contact tracing, with going down to that 3 to 6 foot distance, it will change a little bit. We are looking, it's not going to change how we go about it. We're still going to do a thorough investigation with that positive case, but we may see an increase of number of students and people that we have to deem a close contact due to the nature of the distance. Again, from the beginning, we have not, any child that we had to deem a close contact, we have not seen that turn into a positive case. So that is good data to have. But with that being said, we may have an increase of the number of close contacts just due to the nature of the distancing, and because they have not changed the definition of a close contact. It is someone who is within that 6 feet distance for greater than 15 minutes. So that's the only thing that I think moving forward might be a little bit different. And we ask for your continued support and patience with that. And always feel free, the nurse Nicole Quinn at the Borough, Erin Murray at the IGO, and Donna Jurek, who took over for Edna Fuller at the Taylor. Feel free, you can always reach out to me also. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions in the morning. You know, your kid wakes up with a runny nose, they have allergies. You know, it's okay to call them in the morning, and you know, maybe you call them and they give you some advice, and they have to come into school a little bit later. But reach out; they're there for you. They're there to support you. They're there to help you when you need.
Thanks, Jen. So we want to transition to our arrival, dismissal, and transportation now. Dr. Berdos did send out a survey asking families who are allowed, were in the radius to take the bus, who might have not been taking the bus so far, who would like to transition back to the bus. So we're hoping that some of those numbers increase, because that will definitely help with the traffic coming into each of our driveways. I will say at the Borough, things will be similar. Parents can begin dropping off at 8:40 with the crossing guard giving the signal. We are asking at all 3 schools that you please not drop off before 8:40, because there's no supervision before that time. If you're using the live drop-off line at the Borough School, we ask that you stay in your car and your child exit straight from the car. If you have to get out of your car, and we understand with some younger students that that's necessary, we ask that you park in the lot, and then the crossing guard will help you walk across to the sidewalk. In order to avoid that backup on Moore Street, this is more at dismissal than drop-off, but for both, if you see that the cars are backed up to the street, we are asking that you go around, turn around, and come up behind the line. So that's, again, if you're coming from Cohasset, not try to make that left into the driveway, but instead go around, make a turnaround and get at the end of the line, so that everybody is making that right into the driveway. And that particularly will help with the buses too, as they begin to exit. The walkers and children being picked up will be dismissed at 3 o'clock, and the buses will begin to dismiss after that, one at a time, once all the walkers are out of the building. So Mrs. Campbell, do you want to talk a little bit about IGO?
Sure. Thank you, Mrs. McCarthy. We do have some similarities between our building and the other buildings, but some of the things that are specific to IGO. It is very important that you do not allow your children to come gather on the grassy area before drop-off. We really need to make sure that the flow of traffic is going to be moving. We know that Carpenter Street is going to be busy. Please make sure if you are dropping off your kindergartner that they still come down the center path. We have our staff that walk them down to the kindergarten line. So please don't do 2 drop-offs. If you're dropping your kindergartner off at one side and then your 1st to 4th graders down the other side, it needs to be one place. I am going to ask that you really are moving the flow of traffic for drop-off. You may need to park down at St. Mary's and walk back. It's working well what we have now. We just know that it's going to be at double capacity. We are going to keep the same entrances. We will have the buses drop off the kindergarten to their entrance. We have the main entrance as well as the side entrance for the upstairs. The arrival and dismissal is working very well. We just need to make sure that the flow keeps happening. Same as Mrs. McCarthy said, we will be dismissing all of our walkers first. I am going to ask that you grab and go, that you take your kids and that you do get going because of traffic. I know in another year and another time, it's nice to congregate and talk to friends and have that social time. We just aren't going to be able to be doing that this year. So if you can take your kids and get the flow at dismissal time, that would be great, because that will be our cue that we can get the buses going. And if you have any questions at all, as always, just give a shout. Mr. Stanton, to you.
And for Taylor School, we'll need your help. First off, I want to let you know that we use iPhone time here. Sometimes clocks are always off, so in home and at school. So if you can look at that, as Mrs. McCarthy said, 8:40, we don't have supervision beforehand. The biggest change for Taylor School is going to be, we're going to ask everybody in the morning who's arriving to take a right-hand turn into the driveway. So if you are coming from the center of town, but from Foxborough High School, that's going to require you to go up North High Street to Walnut and then turn on to South Street and then right into the driveway. The reason that we need this, and we've worked with the Foxborough Police to help us develop a traffic pattern, is we're worried about the congestion that will result with people waiting to take left-hand turns, and it will literally cause gridlock. We've experienced on a smaller scale, not knowing how many people will be taking the bus, how many students. This is probably the potential for the greatest challenge for us. So your assistance with that change, and I'll be sending out an email with details for all families, so you can look at that piece of it. That's the biggest part. Once again, for arrival, we have our wonderful staff members who will have your children open up the door for them. If you can make sure once you're safely in the Taylor School driveway, unbuckle the seatbelts, get the backpacks ready, because once again, we want to keep traffic moving in a safe manner. At dismissal time, I'm going to ask that you park your car and then walk over to where we will be bringing out the students for dismissal. We do a thumbs up. We ask the children, once they see a trusted adult, that they give the staff member on duty a thumbs up. Right now, we have some bad habits with some children crossing over the driveway. So I'm going to ask families if you can have, whether it's yourselves or someone else in your family or a babysitter, if they can walk all the way over to the other side of the driveway, to the grass where the students are closest to the school. And once again, we will be doing the same as the other schools. We'll be dismissing our walkers and pickups first, and then we'll be loading our buses. And just to echo what Mrs. Campbell said, in order for our buses, it gets very tight down there. I don't want any accidents. So we're going to ask, once you have your children, get into your cars. And if you could depart school grounds so we can make sure the buses get by safely, we would appreciate that very much. It's still me, typical day. So this is wonderful to be talking about a typical day again. And we know we'll put that in quotes. We're going to be getting back to a full day of school. We're getting back to all of the students in the classroom with their teachers. All the subjects will be taught. With remote learning, we did have to make some changes with the delivery instruction and prioritizing. So, the science and the social studies blocks, the literacy and the math blocks, we'll have all of that as we always have done in school. So we're excited for that piece of it. We will be going back to the 6-day cycle. So that's a change because since we have gone remote, it's been a Monday through Friday. So especially for our kindergarten families, this may be new to you. So what we did is on the school calendar, we did add the days of the cycle because even for that wonderful BIT calendar, which we usually have the year, we didn't have that piece of it because we weren't sure, when this day would come. So we did put that on the calendar that you can access from any of the 3 schools, so you can see which day of the cycle it is. We will have wellness, art, music starting in first grade. We introduce Spanish to the students. And once the teachers we have the schedules finalized, they'll be posting them on their website. They'll be communicating with you so you'll know when to have your sneakers, have your children wear their sneakers. We will be doing book checkout as well. It's going to look a little bit different. We won't have the full class go at a time, but each school we've devised a process where we're able to have children be able to check out their books and return them. So we're excited for that. We'll also, as Dr. Berto said, I think at the beginning, is we'll have closing circle with all students, our cohort D students, everybody, so we can continue to try to create that fun. And then probably the biggest part of the typical day, we're welcoming back recess and lunch. Once again, we do have to follow the guidelines, so it will look different, but we're really excited for that. Of special note, we wanted to let you know that you will be receiving an email from your principal just to let you know what materials we're going to ask the specialists for the children to have for specials. For example, we send home a lot of the supplies for remote learning. So our art, wellness, music teachers, they're going to give us a list of what we want the children to bring back to school. So we'll pass that on to you. We'll have that. And also we do have a slide at the end, but I'm going to mention it now. Starting April 1st, we're going to ask your children to bring back their laptops and chargers. This is critical because we're excited that they won't have to be using them at home anymore, but we do need to charge them. We will be utilizing them in school at times. When they are returned, our teachers will be doing a quick survey to see if there is any damage and document that things were returned fine or if there was an issue. So that is something that, once again, we'll be providing additional details in the future to you.
Mr. Stanton, before we go on to lunch and snack, and there are a couple of questions there, which I think will get answered, and if not, we can go back to them. There are a couple questions. The exact times for drop-off and dismissal. So if you could just
8:40 a.m. Traditionally, it's 8:45, but we did move it up 5 minutes to try to ease the number of arrivals at one time. So it's 8:40. We have supervision in place that we're able to accept students coming out of cars and we can welcome them into the building.
And then dismissal?
Dismissal is 3 o'clock, but we will be beginning internally. We have a process that we start a little bit earlier to make sure our extended day students get to that location and we can take attendance. And then we'll be calling.
And that might be a little different at each school because we are starting at 3. So
if you have a question specific to your school, feel free to reach out to the building principal. Also, there's a question about the new bus regulations. Will all seats be filled or will there be 3 to 6 feet distancing? Whoever wants to take that one, feel free.
I can answer that one. With the new guidance that came out from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, the bus restrictions have been lifted. We currently were only able to have about a third of our students on the bus, but those restrictions are lifted. So we do encourage families that have been driving their children to school, if they're eligible for the bus, to ride the bus.
One other question here, should we remove the cases from laptops before sending them back or keep them on for the remainder of the year? I think I'll let one of the principals answer that, but I think I know the answer.
well, my understanding that we are going to have charging stations in each of the classrooms. And I believe if the cases are on, that they won't fit in the charging stations. But we have not seen those yet. So that would be something that as we put those together and start putting them in, that maybe we can let parents know that.
But they should be returning the cases along. There's 3 things, the case, the laptop, and the charger, correct?
So we did
No,
not
we
have
don't
cases.
have cases.
So
So they put them, okay.
if you had a case, especially if you're a 4th grader, it will look different at the middle school and obviously then high school where we have the same exact model. So you may want to take it off. I would suggest taking it off because we'll be having them in the classroom. So just save yourself some future money, maybe.
Mhm.
I agree.
Okay, we will move to the next section and we can go back to the questions in a minute.
Okay. Snack and recess, some of our most favorite things. We'll be going to that next area. So we did have to do some thinking outside the box. The kids will be having snack and they will be having lunch. So we do need parents to understand that for snack time, we need it in all buildings to still be nut safe. We need to be having a snack that is easy to open and they will need to be eating it in 10 minutes. hopefully a snack that they don't need utensils, or sometimes we have those mini meals that come in. Reason being is during snack, all the students will need to be 6 feet apart. They will hand sanitize or wash hands before and after snack, but being 6 feet apart with masks off means that we will probably need to have some type of rotating system in place depending on the classroom setup. On beautiful days, and we're hoping for the best, many times we'll be able to have snack outside. But if it is going to be snack inside, it will be at 6 feet without masks on. When that group is done, they'll put their masks back on, and then the next group would have it. So even though we are 3 feet in our class work environment, when it comes to food and snacks and masks off, we go back to 6 feet expectations. When we, that's what we've got for snack. I'm going to move on to lunch because I know there's a lot of questions about lunch. All of our buildings are going to have multiple spaces for our cafeterias or our lunch stations. Here at the IGO, I'm going to have 2 main cafeterias, one upstairs and one downstairs. If your child is an allergy student, they will be closer to the nurses station. Both of our cafeterias will have peanut-free stations within them. There will be assigned seats because we will have to have a very systematic opportunity for kids to be getting their food delivered to them. They will be supervised. They will be able to talk. They will be 6 feet apart, again, with masks off. There won't be a ton of movement. You will be able to purchase hot lunches. There will be hot and cold, and they will be delivered to the students on where they are sitting. I will have 5 lunches here at the IGO. There will be a cleaning between each lunch. So I feel confident in that the system is different than what the kids have done before, but I do feel the systems that Mr. Stanton, Mrs. McCarthy, and I have spent a lot of time working on, we do feel that these systems are going to work. They will be successful. The kids will enjoy snack and they will enjoy lunch. So I think it's going to go well.
Mrs. Campbell, there are several questions about snack and lunch.
Yep.
So can you just explain this classroom setup, how we're going to do snack, so that because they're in the classroom together, how we're going to sort of use that checkerboard approach for them to be 6 feet apart?
Sure. So it wouldn't be every other row because they would still be at 3 feet. So it would be, if you can envision a checkerboard, how you would have every other. So the teachers who are masters and just unbelievable warriors at thinking outside the box will figure out their system of how it is 6 feet. Again, I think teachers are hoping that that block will be able to be outside and we're going to have nice days, but if it's in the classroom, we will be 6 feet apart, but it will be every other seat. At checkerboard is the best analogy to have a visual in your head, and then those masks go on, and then the next group is rotated in for their snack. So it would be 10 minutes and 10 minutes.
And while students are having snacks, the other students will be participating in some classroom activities. So again, that could be in kindergarten, it could be their playtime with their, play boxes that they have, or it could be in another grade listening to reading. So they'll be, engaged in some sort of academics, but it will still, but activities that will still allow for some of that socialization that Mrs. Campbell talked about.
Dr. Berdos in a second is going to talk about the free lunch and breakfast, but before we go there, a couple of small questions. Will kindergarten only have 1 snack or 2 snacks is one. Will kindergarten families receive lunch, details about how the lunch works in the cafeteria? It's going to be a little different than it normally would. And how about nut-free at lunch as well as snacks? So those are 3 questions. How many snack times?
So for kindergarten, they will have 1 snack, the same as everyone else, and 1 lunch. At the Borough, we will have to remain nut-free for both snack and lunch because some grade levels are eating in the classroom. And yes, I anticipate that we will be sending out more communications on lots of different things before we get to April 5th. But again, still encouraging people to reach out if they have questions.
At IGO and at Taylor, we are going to be able to have the capacity for a peanut-free and nut-free opportunity within the cafeterias. So I know Burrow's a little bit different, but we will be able to have peanut products in the cafeteria, not in any of the classrooms.
And can we just touch upon how the lunch delivery, normally kids would go through the line and if there's a kindergarten family asking, they haven't experienced that. That's going to be a little different.
So it will be bagged lunches that will be delivered to where the kids are going to be seated. So everything will be organized and labeled, and our staff will be going to where the students are sitting and putting their assigned bag at their seat. The kindergarten, we'll do a practice run. They will be going to the cafeteria, but it will be very systematic and supervised. They'll be sitting in a desk. It will have their name on it, and their lunch will be brought to him or her, to the kids. They will not be going through the line.
Great. Dr. Berdos, do you want to jump in about the free lunch and breakfast?
Will continue to be free throughout this school year.
Okay, great. A couple people had that question. So there's a couple other questions, but I think we're going to get to them as we go through the remainder of the presentation, and we'll go back to them in a moment.
So recess, I will say just my best way to describe it. First of all, we are most excited about it, as the kids said, to get outside and socialize and just have fun. But we will continue with our 3 feet separation. We will have additional supervision to monitor that, as well as students will continue to have their masks on during recess. The best way that I've been describing it to kids is that you can play, it just can't be competitive sports. So for example, you can shoot baskets like horse, but you can't play a game of basketball. You can kick a soccer ball back and forth between 2 people, but you can't play a game of soccer. You can throw a football, but you can't play a game of football. So that's what we are telling children. Again, climbing structures are there for all the students. And again, we are just hoping that just being out, having fun in the fresh air is just going to be so great for these last 10 weeks.
And masks will be on, and they'll sanitize before and after, right?
Yeah.
Great.
And so for homework, we let our teachers know, and our focus is really, we realize we're thrilled to be back, but this still isn't what we want. We want what we had before COVID. And with that, what we want to do is have our students focus, once they're out of school, be able to focus more so on play and having fun. So what we've asked all the teachers to do is, for their homework, it will be the nightly reading and also math fact practice. There won't be worksheets. There won't be any special projects. We really want your children to focus time on playing outside, having family time without the stress of the battles after a day of being in school about homework. As always, you can use the principal's name in any way that you feel necessary to get the nightly reading done and encouragement and the math facts. But we hope that this is just a layer that will help out. Some additional helpful hints that we just wanted to share. Probably the importance here is really focusing on establishing routines. Start to do that now. It's almost like similar to when we come back in the summertime after a long time off without set bedtimes or other routines. So, look to pack the backpack the night before, having a nutritious breakfast, and really trying to balance those sort of family and social priorities. We realize children are busy, especially in the spring. We do want them to enjoy their different activities, but we need them to be here at school on time. We need them to be ready to learn, having that nutritious breakfast, being well rested. So those small things that you can start to do now will greatly help come April 5th. And then just finally, our final slide before questions is just, once again, that reminder that laptops, and we will be sending home a more detailed email to you, and the charges, and as well as any materials from the specials by Thursday, April 1st. But be on the lookout for some additional information. And so, Dr. Mello, I guess we'll ask you, are there any questions that, looking at the clock and looking in that we have about 5 minutes, that we could address?
One that seems to be popular is, if a child had to quarantine, would they be able to join the class via Teams?
Dr. Berdos, do you want to sort of address that? So it's a more district.
Sure. So with our teachers teaching the students in front of them, we do not have live streaming, so we would not be live streaming students into the classroom. Now, if we ended up having a full classroom that had to quarantine and for that class to go fully remote, like for instance, we had an experience with our late start and our early release with that, we would look to something as far as if that were a whole class. If it's an individual case, students, just as if anyone is absent, the absences would not be they would not be unexcused. We would work with, just as if a student's absent for a reason such as being sick, the teacher would be working with those students that are out. We also know that these are uncharted waters for us as we go forward, and we're going to see what happens as far as, do we have large numbers of students that have to quarantine, and we'll tackle that as it comes along. But currently, to answer the question, we don't have live streaming into the classrooms. One other question that was in the chat that I'll just touch on was, if a student were to go fully remote, said something about in the newspaper as far as that not counting. What that means is, if our students are fully remote, that still counts as their structured time on learning. They're exempt per se. So we know from the state's mandate that we cannot have students asynchronously if they are with us full in person and have that out of school time count as their structured learning time. But that is not the case for students that are fully remote, meaning that they are in cohort D.
Dr. Berto, can we also talk about singing and music? We have some new guidance about singing inside.
Yes, so we were very excited to see that guidance recently change, where students can sing, because it's not just a matter of chorus when we think about our larger ensembles. In kindergarten and in our elementary classrooms, students are singing, but if they are singing, there are protocols that we follow. For instance, they have to be 10 feet apart, and that we also will be using outdoor spaces as much as possible, weather permitting.
There's a question about breakfast being eaten at school. I don't know if one of the principals wants to take that.
So we'll continue with what we've always done, that if we have a child that needs to have breakfast, we will give them the space and time. Obviously, in the classroom, that may not occur. Oftentimes, if the breakfast bag is delivered, the children will have that for snack. But as always, and this has always been the case, we will provide a child with their breakfast if they need to have that, and we would just work with that classroom teacher to find the spot.
And students need to pre-order their lunch, Mr. Stanton?
That is correct. Yeah. So Ms. Watts, she'll be sending home a detailed update in the ordering. As Mrs. Campbell said, what's nice is there's a label that will come with the bags, the hot or the cold option, and then we're able to deliver it right to the child.
But it will be important that the parents do the ordering online.
And I did, because I had said at PTO, I thought they were just going to be cold, but we are fortunate that we will have that hot option as well, both bagged.
And then there is a question from a kindergarten parent about the laptop insurance that was purchased. That will continue, I believe, through the life of the device. I don't know, does anybody want to take that one about how that works for the insurance and the device that's assigned to the child?
I think we would have to look into that. I'm not sure. I know it was a prorated fee this year, so I'm not sure if it's an annual fee or not, but we can definitely let parents know. We'll have to do a little research on that and get back to you.
And someone is saying, and I know we need to wrap it up, is there a menu to select from? Yes, you'll be getting the food. You can, there's actually a whole website from our food service that shows the choices for lunch. And there were questions about, if the laptops are due back by 4/1, will there be live specials on 4/2? Will there be buzz? And so does anybody want to take that one?
So we're going to ask for the families to help us out with that piece of it, where devices at home just for that one day. Looking at the turnaround, what's key for us is what we're learning as administrators is that we have to have the laptops and the chargers in order for this to work on the other end. And there's still tools for learning that we will be utilizing. Obviously, we won't be using them a lot because now that we're faced in person, but we do need to have those back. So we will be sharing plans. The specials teachers will be sharing, lessons and activities for that day.
And it's only a half day, so it's only a little bit. So.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us this evening. We hope that this has been informative for you. And we will be downloading the chat. So if there are questions that we didn't get to, I think we got to most of them. we can share those. And again, if you have an individual question, please reach out to your building principal. Anybody have anything to add before we wrap up?
No, I'll just add that we will be having the middle school. If you have any middle school students, you would have received that communication, another town hall on the 31st of March. And then the high school is being scheduled with a date to be determined, but most likely the very beginning of April. So again, thank you so much for joining us. We had about 150 people on this call tonight. We've also recorded it, and we really appreciate your ongoing support. We know these are challenging times, but we're also just so excited to be able to see our students full day, 5 days a week. And we're looking forward to that April 5th. So thank you again for joining us this evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Have a great
everyone.
night.
Take care.